The ice on Ophelia Ellis's eyelashes melted into tears as she stood trembling on the station platform in Hangtown, California, clutching the carpetbag that held everything she owned, wondering if the man who had promised to marry her would see the truth written all over her face the moment he looked into her eyes. The February wind of 1868 cut through her threadbare wool coat, and she wrapped her arms tighter around herself, searching the faces of the men who milled about the train depot. She had memorized every word of Isaac Xander's letters, the careful penmanship that spoke of a lonely rancher seeking companionship, a woman to share his life in the rough country outside town. He had written of his cattle ranch, his small but sturdy home, his dreams of building something lasting in this wild territory. She had responded with her own carefully crafted letters, painting herself as a respectable widow from Philadelphia, a woman of good character seeking a fresh start in the West. Every word had been a lie wrapped around a kernel of desperate truth. Miss Ellis. A deep voice broke through her spiraling thoughts, and she turned to see a tall man approaching, his boots crunching on the icy platform. He was broader through the shoulders than she had imagined, his face weathered by sun and wind, with eyes the color of storm clouds under the brim of his worn hat. A dark beard covered his jaw, and when he removed his hat in greeting, she saw that his dark hair touched his collar, longer than was fashionable back east. "Mr. Xander," she managed, her voice barely above a whisper. The cold had numbed her lips, or perhaps it was fear that made speaking so difficult. "Isaac, please." His smile was tentative, uncertain, and something in that vulnerability made her heart clench with fresh guilt. "Welcome to California. I hope the journey was not too difficult." She thought of the endless days on the train, the way she had jumped at every unexpected sound, certain that somehow they had found her, that hands would reach out to drag her back to Philadelphia, back to the horror she had fled. "It was long," she said carefully, "but I am grateful to be here." He reached for her bag, and she noticed his hands were large and calloused, the hands of a man who worked hard for his living. "I have the wagon waiting. It is about an hour's ride to the ranch. I brought extra blankets. The weather turned bitter yesterday." He hesitated, then added, "I thought we might get married tomorrow if that suits you. The reverend in town can perform the ceremony, unless you need more time to settle in and get your bearings. Tomorrow." She would become his wife tomorrow, bound to this stranger through vows she had no right to speak, bringing her tainted past into his honest life like a poison. The tears that had been frozen on her lashes began to flow in earnest, and she turned away quickly, trying to hide her face. "Miss Ellis." "Ophelia." His voice filled with concern, and she felt his hand, gentle and hesitant, on her shoulder. "If I have said something to upset you, please tell me. I know this is all happening very fast. We can wait as long as you need." "No, it is not that," she said, her words tumbling out between sobs she could no longer contain. "You have been nothing but kind. It is just the cold and the long journey, and I—" She could not finish, could not find words that would be both true and safe to speak. "Come," he said softly. "Let us get you warm and fed. Everything else can wait." The wagon ride passed in a blur of white landscape and jarring cold. Isaac had indeed brought heavy blankets, and he tucked them around her with a care that made her want to weep again. He did not press her with questions, though she felt his occasional glances, sensed his worry in the tense set of his shoulders. Instead, he pointed out landmarks along the road, spoke of his cattle and horses, filled the silence with stories that required no response from her. His ranch house appeared as the sun began to set, a solid structure of weathered wood with smoke rising from the chimney. It was larger than she had expected, with a wide porch and glass windows that caught the dying light. A barn stood nearby, and she could see the dark shapes of cattle in distant fields, huddled together against the cold. "It is not much," Isaac said as he helped her down from the wagon, "but it is sound and warm. I have been working on it for 5 years now, building it up piece by piece." "It is more than I expected," Ophelia said honestly. More than she deserved. Inside, a fire burned in a large stone fireplace, and the single main room was neat and spare, furnished with handmade furniture that showed skill and patience in its construction. A table and chairs occupied one area, a bed stood in the far corner behind a curtain for privacy, and shelves lined one wall, filled with books and supplies. "I have been sleeping in the barn," Isaac said quickly, following her gaze to the bed, "since I knew you were coming. I thought you should have the house to yourself until after the wedding. If there is a wedding," he added quietly. "I do not want you to feel pressured into anything, Ophelia. If you have changed your mind, if you want to go back east, I will pay for your ticket and you can stay here until you are ready to travel again." She turned to face him, this good man offering her an escape from the trap she had voluntarily entered. The firelight played across his features, highlighting the concern in his eyes, the gentleness in his expression despite his rough exterior. He deserved the truth. He deserved to know what kind of woman he had invited into his home. "There is something I need to tell you," she began, her voice shaking. "Something I should have written in my letters, but I was too afraid, too cowardly." Isaac pulled out a chair from the table. "Sit down. I will make us some coffee and you can tell me whatever is weighing on your heart." She sat, her hands twisted together in her lap, and watched as he moved around the room with easy competence, stoking the fire, hanging a pot of water over the flames, measuring out coffee grounds. The domestic simplicity of it all made what she had to say feel even more impossible, but she forced herself to gather her courage. When he finally sat across from her, 2 steaming cups between them, she took a deep breath and began. "I am not a widow," she said. "I have never been married. That was the first lie I told you, and there were others. My father did own a dry goods store in Philadelphia, that much was true, but he gambled away everything we had. When he died last year, he left nothing but debts. My mother had already passed when I was 16, so I was alone and desperate." Isaac listened without interrupting, his face still and unreadable. "I tried to find honest work, but positions for unmarried women with no references are scarce. I took a job at a boarding house, cleaning rooms and helping in the kitchen. The owner was a man named Cornelius Reed. He seemed kind at first, fatherly. He said I could have a room of my own, that I would be safe there." She paused, swallowing hard against the memories that rose like bile in her throat. "I was a fool to trust him." "Ophelia," Isaac said gently, but she shook her head. "Please let me finish. I need to say it all." She stared down at her coffee, unable to meet his eyes. "He came to my room one night drunk. He said I owed him for his charity, that I needed to be grateful. I fought him and he hit me, and then—" Her voice broke, but she forced herself to continue. "Then I grabbed the lamp from beside the bed and I struck him with it. He fell, and there was so much blood. He did not move. I did not stay to see if he was dead or merely unconscious. I took what little money I had saved and I ran. I have been running ever since, looking over my shoulder, expecting every day to see police or bounty hunters coming for me." The silence that followed her confession seemed to stretch forever. She sat frozen, waiting for Isaac to tell her to leave, to demand she get out of his house, or worse, to say he would turn her over to the authorities himself. "Look at me," he said finally, and she reluctantly raised her eyes to meet his. There was no anger in his expression, no disgust, only a deep sadness that somehow made her feel even worse. "That man assaulted you. You defended yourself. That is not murder, Ophelia. That is survival. I do not know if he died, she whispered. I never stayed to find out. I ran like a criminal, and that makes me one. Isaac leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. Listen to me carefully. You are not a criminal. You are a woman who was put in an impossible situation and did what she had to do to survive. I will not judge you for that. I cannot judge you for that. You should tell me to leave. You should want nothing to do with me. I lied to you, Isaac. I came here under false pretenses. You came here looking for safety, for a new start. He reached across the table, and after a moment's hesitation, she put her hand in his. His grip was warm and steady, an anchor in the storm of her emotions. I am not going to turn you away, but I need you to understand something. If we marry, it should be because we both want to build a life together, not because you feel you have no other choice. I do not want you to feel trapped here the way you felt trapped in Philadelphia. I do not deserve your kindness, she said, tears streaming down her face again. I do not deserve any of this. That is not for you to decide. His thumb traced gentle circles on the back of her hand. We all carry things we are not proud of. We all have moments we wish we could change. Your past brought you to me, Ophelia. That is how I choose to see it, not as something shameful, but as the path that led you here, to this place, at this moment. His words broke something open inside her, some dam she had built to hold back all the fear and grief and shame, and she found herself sobbing in earnest, great heaving cries that shook her whole body. Isaac moved around the table and drew her up into his arms, holding her while she wept against his chest, one hand stroking her hair while he murmured soft reassurances that she could barely hear over her own crying. When the storm finally passed, she found herself exhausted, wrung out like a washcloth. Isaac guided her to the bed, pulled off her boots, and covered her with quilts that smelled of lavender and sunshine. Sleep, he told her. We can talk more in the morning. You are safe here, Ophelia. You are safe. She did not think sleep would come, but her body, pushed beyond endurance by fear and travel and emotional upheaval, had other ideas. The last thing she remembered was the sound of the door closing softly as Isaac left for the barn, and the crackle of the fire keeping watch in the darkness. She woke to gray morning light filtering through the windows and the smell of bacon frying. For a moment, she could not remember where she was and panic seized her, but then memory returned along with the warmth of the quilts and the sound of someone moving around the room. I hope I did not wake you, Isaac said when he saw her eyes open. He was at the stove, tending a skillet. I was trying to be quiet. What time is it? She sat up slowly, disoriented and embarrassed. Her face felt swollen from crying, and she was still wearing yesterday's travel clothes, rumpled and stale. About 8. You slept nearly 12 hours. He slid bacon onto 2 plates, added eggs and bread, and brought one to her. Eat. Then there is a bathhouse in the barn where you can wash up. I heated water earlier. Take your time. There is no rush today. I thought we were going to be married today, she said uncertainly. Isaac sat down with his own plate, his expression serious. I have been thinking about that. What you told me last night, that took courage, and I respect you for being honest with me. But I do not want you making a decision about marriage when you are scared and running and feel like you have no choices. So here is what I propose. You stay here as my guest for a while. Get to know the place. Get to know me. If after some time has passed, you decide you want to marry me, we will do it. If you decide you want to go somewhere else, start over somewhere new, I will help you do that too. No strings, no obligations. Isaac, I cannot ask you to do that. People will talk. It is not proper for me to live here alone with you without being married. People can talk all they want. They have been talking about me for years anyway. A hint of bitterness crept into his voice. Besides, as far as anyone in town needs to know, we got married already. I will tell anyone who asks that Reverend Marks performed the ceremony. He is old and forgetful enough that he will not contradict me even if someone thinks to check. Why would they talk about you? What have you done to earn gossip? She was curious despite herself, drawn to this puzzle of a man who showed her nothing but kindness while clearly harboring his own shadows. Isaac set down his fork, his jaw tight. I came out here 6 years ago with my brother Jonas. We were going to build this ranch together, make our fortune raising cattle. We had it all planned out the way brothers do. He paused, staring at something she could not see. The second year we were here, there was trouble with a group of men who were stealing cattle from ranches in the area. Jonas caught them in the act one night. They shot him dead and left him in the field for me to find the next morning. Oh, Isaac. Ophelia felt tears prick her eyes again. I am so sorry. I went after them, tracked them for 3 weeks. When I found them, I did what I thought needed to be done. The law did not seem particularly interested in catching cattle thieves, so I took care of it myself. His eyes met hers, hard and cold. Some folks in town think I went too far. They think I should have brought them in to face a judge. But I know what I did, and I know why I did it, and I have made my peace with that. Still, it made me an outsider. People are wary of me. They do business with me because my money is as good as anyone else's, but they do not invite me to their homes or their socials. She understood then the loneliness that had driven him to seek a mail-order bride, the isolation that came from being judged by one's worst moment rather than one's whole character. We are quite a pair, are we not? She said softly. Both running from our pasts, both trying to build something new out of the wreckage. Maybe that is why your letter stood out to me from all the others I received. Something in your words spoke to something in me, even though I did not understand it at the time. He managed a slight smile. So what do you say? Will you stay for a while, see if this life, if I, might be what you are looking for? Yes, she said, the word coming easier than she expected. Yes, I will stay. The days that followed fell into an easy rhythm. Isaac was up before dawn every morning, tending to his cattle and horses, mending fence lines, doing the 100 small tasks that kept a ranch running. Ophelia took over the household duties, cooking and cleaning, mending his clothes and organizing his supplies. She discovered that she liked the work, liked the simplicity and purpose of it. There was something healing in the routine, in going to bed tired from honest labor and waking to the knowledge that the day held clear, manageable tasks. Isaac was careful with her, keeping a respectful distance, never pushing for more than she was willing to give. They talked during meals, sharing stories from their childhoods, discussing books from his surprisingly extensive collection, debating everything from politics to the best way to make biscuits. She learned that he had been a schoolteacher back in Ohio before coming west, that he loved Shakespeare and poetry, that he played the harmonica, but only when he thought no one was listening. 2 weeks after her arrival, a cold snap brought fresh snow, and Ophelia woke to find the world transformed, white and pristine under a brilliant blue sky. She was kneading bread dough when Isaac came in, stamping snow from his boots. There is a cow having trouble birthing in the near pasture, he said. I need to help her, but it is going to take both of us. Can you spare time from the kitchen? She did not hesitate, wiping flour from her hands and reaching for her coat. They trudged through knee-deep snow to where a young cow lay on her side, lowing in distress. Isaac examined her quickly, his movements sure and gentle. The calf is turned wrong. I need to help it along. He looked up at Ophelia. I need you to hold her head, keep her calm, talk to her. Can you do that? Ophelia knelt in the snow. heedless of the cold seeping through her skirts, and laid her hands on the cow's massive head. The animal's eyes rolled in pain and fear, and Ophelia began to speak, a steady stream of nonsense and comfort, the way her mother used to soothe her after nightmares when she was small. Isaac worked with patient focus, his face tight with concentration. Time seemed to stretch and bend, marked only by the cow's labored breathing and the soft stream of Ophelia's voice. Then, suddenly, there was a wet sliding sound and a calf lay steaming in the snow, slick and impossibly small. "Come on, little one," Isaac murmured, clearing the calf's nose and mouth, rubbing it briskly with handfuls of straw he had brought. For a terrible moment, nothing happened, and then the calf shuddered and drew its first breath, a wavering moan that made Ophelia laugh with relief. The mother cow, exhausted but determined, struggled to her feet and began licking her newborn with long, rough strokes. Isaac sat back on his heels, grinning, and Ophelia found herself grinning back, giddy with the simple miracle of new life. "We make a good team," Isaac said, and something in his voice made her heart skip. "Yes," she agreed. "We do." Walking back to the house, their shoulders brushing companionably, Ophelia realized something had shifted between them. The awkwardness of strangers had worn away, replaced by something warmer, more solid. She thought about Isaac's proposal to wait, to give her time, and she wondered if she had not already made her decision, deep down where words had not yet caught up with feeling. That night after supper, Isaac pulled out his harmonica and played while Ophelia mended socks by the fire. The music was sweet and melancholy, full of longing and loss and hope all tangled together. When he finished, she applauded and he ducked his head embarrassed. "My brother used to say I played like a dying cat," he said. "Your brother was wrong. He was wrong about a lot of things, but I still miss him every day." Isaac turned the harmonica over in his hands, studying it as if it held answers to questions he did not know how to ask. "Do you miss Philadelphia? Your old life?" "I miss my mother. I miss who I was before my father's gambling and before Cornelius Reed. But the city itself, the life I had there. No, I do not miss living in fear and poverty, wondering each day if I would eat or have a roof over my head." She set down her mending. "Here, for the first time in longer than I can remember, I feel like I can breathe, like I can be someone other than the frightened girl running from shadows." "You are much more than that girl," Isaac said quietly. "You are strong, Ophelia. Stronger than you give yourself credit for." I did not feel strong when I was crying frozen tears on the train platform. Strength is not about never being afraid or never feeling broken. It is about getting up anyway, about keeping going even when every part of you wants to give up. You did that. You are still doing it. She met his eyes across the fire, saw the sincerity there, the growing affection, and felt an answering warmth in her own chest. "Your past brought you to me," she said, echoing the words he had spoken that first night. "I think I am beginning to understand what you meant." He set aside his harmonica and moved to sit beside her on the floor near the fire. "May I hold your hand?" he asked, and she gave it to him gladly, marveling at how natural it felt, how right. They sat like that for a long time, hands clasped, watching the flames dance, not needing words to fill the space between them. 3 weeks became 4, then 5. Winter began its slow retreat, and the world turned muddy and raw as snow melted into spring runoff. Isaac taught Ophelia to ride one of his gentler horses, a gray mare named Silver. She proved to be a quick study, and soon they were riding together through the waking landscape, checking fence lines and watching for early calves. On one such ride, they encountered a man from a neighboring ranch, a grizzled old cattleman named Joshua Wells. He tipped his hat to Ophelia and congratulated Isaac on his marriage, and Isaac thanked him smoothly, his arm tightening around Ophelia's waist where he had reached to steady her on her horse. After the man rode on, Ophelia looked at Isaac questioningly. "You see how easy that was," Isaac said. "As far as the world is concerned, you are Ophelia Xander, my lawfully wedded wife. Your old life, your old troubles, they do not exist anymore. You are safe." "But we are not really married," she said, though the name Ophelia Xander sent a pleasant shiver through her. "We could be." Isaac's voice was steady, but she saw the tension in his shoulders, the way his hands gripped his reins just a little too tightly. "If you wanted." "Is that a proposal, Isaac Xander?" "I suppose it is. Not a very romantic one, I admit." "I should probably get down on one knee in a field of wildflowers or some such thing." She laughed, genuinely amused, and he smiled at the sound. "I do not need wildflowers. I do not need grand gestures, but I would like to know why. Why do you want to marry me truly? Is it just convenience?" "Practicality." Isaac pulled his horse to a stop, and she did the same. They sat facing each other on the muddy road, the ranch land stretching out around them in all directions. "I want to marry you because you make me laugh. Because you are not afraid of hard work or cold weather or helping birth a calf in the snow. Because when I come in from a long day, I look forward to seeing you, to hearing about your day, to just being in the same room with you. Because somewhere over the past 5 weeks, this house stopped being just a place I live and started being a home, and that is because of you." He took a breath. "And because I am falling in love with you, Ophelia Ellis, and I think maybe you might be falling in love with me too." Her heart hammered against her ribs, and she realized he was right. Somewhere between frozen tears and bread dough and newborn calves, she had fallen in love with this quiet, serious man who had shown her nothing but kindness and patience. "I am," she said. "I am falling in love with you. Maybe I have been since that first night when you held me while I cried and told me I was safe. Then marry me, for real this time. Not because you are running or scared or have nowhere else to go. Marry me because you want to build a life here with me." "Yes," she said, the word ringing out clear and certain in the spring air. "Yes, Isaac, I will marry you." He let out a whoop of joy that startled both horses, then leaned across the space between them to kiss her. It was clumsy and awkward, 2 people balancing on horseback, but it was also perfect, sweet, and filled with promise. They rode back to the ranch giddy as children, making plans. They would go to town the next day, speak to Reverend Marks, make it official. They would have a small ceremony, nothing fancy, just the 2 of them and whatever witnesses the Reverend required. Ophelia found herself bubbling over with happiness, a feeling so foreign and fragile she was almost afraid to trust it. That night, she wrote a letter to her friend Martha, one of the few people from Philadelphia she had kept in contact with through a careful arrangement of forwarded mail. She told her about Isaac, about the ranch, about how she had found a place where her past did not define her future. She did not mention Cornelius' raid, or the blood on his head, or the fear that still sometimes woke her in the middle of the night. Some things were better left in the past, locked away where they could not taint the present. The wedding took place on a Thursday morning in late March. Reverend Marks, a kindly man with white hair and gentle eyes, performed the ceremony in his small church while his wife and the church organist served as witnesses. Ophelia wore a simple blue dress that Isaac had bought her in town, and he wore his best shirt and trousers, his hair freshly trimmed and his beard neatly combed. When the Reverend pronounced them man and wife, Isaac kissed her with a tenderness that brought tears to her eyes, the good kind of tears that came from joy rather than sorrow. They signed the marriage certificate, and Ophelia wrote her new name carefully, Ophelia Xander. It looked right on the paper, felt right in her heart, After the ceremony, they had dinner at the hotel restaurant, a luxury Isaac insisted on to mark the occasion. Other diners glanced at them with curiosity, and Ophelia saw Isaac nod to a few men he knew, saw the slight surprise on their faces that the solitary rancher had taken a wife. Let them look, she thought. Let them see that Isaac Xander was not the cold, vengeful man they had judged him to be, but a good man worthy of happiness. That night, in the marriage bed that was now truly theirs to share, Isaac loved her with the same patience and gentleness he showed to frightened animals and difficult tasks. He made sure of her comfort, asked permission before each new touch, and when she wept afterward, he held her and asked what was wrong. "Nothing is wrong," she assured him. "I am crying because I am happy, because I never thought I could have this. A home, a husband who cares for me, a future that is not soaked in fear. You have all of that now," he promised. "I vow to you, Ophelia, I will spend the rest of my life making sure you never have reason to fear again." She believed him, and that belief was perhaps the greatest gift he could have given her. The seasons turned, spring giving way to summer, and Ophelia bloomed along with the landscape. She started a vegetable garden near the house, coaxing seeds into green shoots and watching with pride as they grew. She learned to preserve food for the winter, to churn butter, to make soap and candles and all the 100 things a ranch wife needed to know. Isaac's housekeeper visits from town became unnecessary, as Ophelia took over those duties completely, adding her own touches to the home, making it truly theirs rather than just his. They worked side by side through the long summer days, branding calves and mending equipment and putting up hay for winter. Ophelia proved herself capable and unafraid of hard work, earning the respect of the few ranch hands Isaac hired during the busy season. In the evenings, they sat on the porch and watched the sun set over the mountains, Isaac's arm around her shoulders, her head resting against his chest, both of them content in a way that needed no words. In August, a letter arrived for Isaac from the county sheriff. Ophelia saw his face go grim as he read it, saw the way his hand tightened on the paper. "What is it?" she asked, anxiety spiking through her. "What is wrong?" Isaac folded the letter carefully and met her eyes. There was a man asking questions in town, a private detective from Philadelphia. He was showing people a sketch of a woman, asking if anyone had seen her. "The sheriff thought I should know, since I recently married a woman from back east." The blood drained from Ophelia's face, and she sat down hard on the nearest chair, her legs suddenly unable to support her weight. "They found me," she whispered. "Cornelius Reed must have survived, and now he has sent someone to find me." Isaac knelt before her, taking her cold hands in his. "Listen to me. The sheriff did not tell this detective anything. He said the sketch did not match anyone he had seen, and as far as he knows, no one from Philadelphia has settled in the area recently. He sent the man packing, told him to try the next county over. But he knows I am here, somewhere in California. He will keep looking. He will find me eventually. Not if we are smart about it. You are Ophelia Xander now. Your papers, our marriage certificate, they are all legal and registered. Ophelia Ellis does not exist anymore. She vanished the day we married." Isaac's jaw set in a hard line. "And I will not let anyone take you from me. Not Reed, not some Philadelphia detective, no one. Isaac, if they find me, if they prove I assaulted Reed, I will go to prison, or worse. Then we will make sure they do not find you." He stood, pulling her up with him. "Come with me, I want to show you something." He led her to the barn, to a back stall that she had never paid much attention to. Moving aside hay bales, he revealed a trapdoor set into the floor. "Storm cellar," he explained, pulling it open, "but also a hiding place if it ever becomes necessary." There is food stored down there, water, blankets. You could hide here for days if you needed to." She stared down into the dark space, feeling the weight of her past pressing down on her shoulders. "I do not want to live in fear again. I cannot go back to that, Isaac. I would rather turn myself in and face whatever consequences come than spend my life jumping at shadows. You are not going to do either of those things." His voice was fierce, his hands gripping her shoulders. "Do you trust me?" "Yes, you know I do." "Then trust me to protect you. Trust me to keep you safe. If this detective comes here, if he asks questions, we will handle it, but I am not going to let fear steal the life we have built." She leaned into him, drawing strength from his solid presence. "Your past brought you to me," she said softly. "Remember, you told me that the night I confessed everything. You said my past was not something shameful but the path that led me here. And I meant every word. Then we face this together. No running, no hiding unless there is no other choice. We are Isaac and Ophelia Xander, and this is our home." He kissed her, hard and desperate, and she kissed him back with equal fervor, sealing the promise between them. The detective never came to the ranch. Days passed, then weeks, and slowly the tension eased from Ophelia's shoulders. The sheriff sent word that the detective had moved on to Sacramento, then San Francisco, apparently convinced that his quarry was in one of the larger cities rather than the rough ranch country. Ophelia allowed herself to hope that perhaps she truly had left Ophelia Ellis behind, that she could live out her days as Ophelia Xander without the past rising up to destroy her. Autumn brought its own work, preparing for winter, butchering beef to salt and store, making sure the animals were strong and healthy before the cold set in. Ophelia noticed changes in her body, a tenderness in her breasts, a queasiness in the mornings that no amount of ginger tea seemed to cure. She suspected what it meant but was afraid to speak the hope aloud, afraid it might prove false. In October, she rode to town and saw the doctor, a gruff man who examined her and confirmed what she had already guessed. She was with child, due sometime in late spring. She was 22 years old, married to a good man, carrying his baby. It was everything she had never dared to dream of during those dark days in Philadelphia. She told Isaac that night after supper, watching his face carefully for his reaction. For a moment, he just stared at her, frozen, and she felt a flutter of worry. Then his face split into the widest grin she had ever seen, and he let out a whoop that probably scared the horses in the barn. He picked her up and spun her around until she laughed and begged him to stop before she got sick. "A baby," he kept saying, wonder in his voice. "We are going to have a baby." "Are you happy?" she asked, though the answer was written all over his face. Happy does not begin to cover it. "Ophelia, you have given me so much. A home, a purpose, love, and now a child." He knelt before her, pressing his forehead against her still flat stomach. "I vow to both of you I will be the best father and husband I can possibly be." Winter came early that year, settling over the ranch like a white blanket by mid-November. Ophelia grew round-bellied and rosy-cheeked, blooming with health despite the cold. Isaac fussed over her constantly, worrying that she worked too hard, that she did not rest enough, that she might slip on the ice and hurt herself or the baby. She bore his worry with patient amusement, knowing it came from love rather than any lack of faith in her capability. On a bitter January evening, with snow piling against the windows and the wind howling around the eaves, someone knocked on their door. Isaac tensed immediately, his hand moving instinctively to where he kept his rifle. Visitors were rare in good weather, almost unheard of in the middle of winter. "Stay back," he told Ophelia and opened the door cautiously. A man stood on the porch, hunched against the cold, his coat and hat white with snow. "Mr. Xander, I am sorry to intrude, but my horse went lame about a mile back and I saw your lights. I am hoping you might offer shelter until the storm passes. Isaac studied him for a long moment, and Ophelia studied him too from where she stood near the fire. He was middle-aged, well-dressed despite being travel-worn, and carried himself with the bearing of an educated man. Something about him set off alarm bells in her head, though she could not say why. "Come in," Isaac said finally, because leaving a man to freeze was not something either of them could do, no matter their suspicions. "Warm yourself by the fire. I will see to your horse in a moment." "Thank you. You are most kind." The man stepped inside, removing his snow-covered hat. His eyes swept the room, taking in everything, and Ophelia saw the moment his gaze fixed on her pregnant form. "And congratulations to you both. When are you expecting?" "Late spring," Isaac said, his voice neutral. He had moved to stand between Ophelia and the stranger, a subtle positioning that spoke of protection. "I did not catch your name." "Forgive me, Daniel Fairmont." "I am a lawyer from Sacramento, traveling to handle some business in the surrounding counties." He smiled, but it did not reach his eyes. "Terrible timing to get caught in a storm, I must admit." "What sort of business brings you out this way in winter?" Ophelia asked. She saw Isaac glance at her, a warning in his eyes, but she needed to know. "Oh, various matters. Estate settlements, property disputes, that sort of thing." Fairmont pulled off his gloves, flexing his fingers in the warmth. "And sometimes I handle inquiries for clients back east. Missing persons, lost heirs, that sort of thing." The room seemed to shrink, the air growing too thin to breathe. Ophelia felt Isaac's hand find hers, squeezing reassuringly. "Sounds like interesting work," Isaac said mildly. "Expensive, though, I would imagine, hiring a lawyer to track down missing people. It can be, but some clients have the money to spend, especially when the matter is personal." Fairmont's eyes moved to Ophelia again, sharp and assessing. "Mr. Reed, for instance. He hired me to locate a young woman who once worked for him. He is quite eager to find her to see that justice is served." There it was, the threat laid bare. Ophelia felt her knees go weak, but Isaac's grip on her hand kept her upright. "Reed," Isaac said, as if tasting the name. Would this be the same Reed who was arrested 3 months ago in Philadelphia for running a house of ill repute and assaulting multiple women? Fairmont's smile faltered. "I do not know what you are talking about." "Really?" "Because I have been getting newspapers from back east, and there was quite a story about it. Seems after one woman disappeared, several others came forward with similar stories of abuse. The authorities investigated his boarding house and found evidence of much worse going on. Last I read, Reed was facing trial and likely imprisonment. I am surprised he would have the funds to hire a lawyer for private investigations, given his circumstances." Ophelia stared at Isaac, hope rising painfully in her chest. "Is that true? Is Reed truly in jail?" "It is." "I did not tell you because I was not sure how you would react, whether it would bring back bad memories or upset you. But yes, about 3 months ago, I read about his arrest. It seems when you did not return and he could not find you, he grew careless. He tried the same thing with another woman, but she had brothers who did not take kindly to the abuse. They beat him badly enough that he had to go to a hospital, and while he was there, the police started investigating." Fairmont's face had gone pale. "If you know all this, then you know that Reed may have filed charges against the woman who struck him first, the one who ran. She could still face assault charges." "Could she?" Isaac's voice turned cold, dangerous. "I think if such a case went to trial, a good lawyer could argue self-defense quite effectively. Especially now that multiple women have testified to Reed's pattern of abuse. In fact, I think any prosecutor would be a fool to waste the court's time on such a case when they already have Reed dead to rights on much more serious charges. Are you a lawyer, Mr. Xander? No. I am just a man who reads the newspapers and knows how to think logically. Isaac stepped forward, his body language shifting into something harder, more threatening. Now, Mr. Fairmont, I think we both know that you did not end up at my door by accident. I think Reed sent you specifically to find my wife. What I want to know is why you thought it was worth traveling all this way in winter for a case that has no legal merit and a client who is likely headed to prison. Fairmont's composure cracked. Reed offered me a large sum of money. He is obsessed with finding the woman who escaped him. He wants revenge. Well, he is not going to get it. Isaac moved to the door and opened it, letting in a blast of freezing air. The storm is dying down. I suggest you take your lame horse and start walking back the way you came. Hangtown is only a few miles. You should make it before you freeze. You cannot throw me out in this weather. I could die. Then you had better walk fast. Isaac's voice was implacable. You came to my home to threaten my wife. You are lucky I am only asking you to leave. Fairmont looked at Ophelia and she saw calculation in his eyes. Reed will pay handsomely for information about your location. Even if there are no legal charges to pursue, he will want to know where you are. Then you go ahead and tell him, Ophelia said, finding her voice, finding her courage. Tell him I am Ophelia Xander now, married to a good man, carrying his child, living a good life far from Philadelphia and far from him. Tell him I survived him and I am thriving and he has no power over me anymore. And then you can tell him that if he ever sends anyone after me again, my husband will hunt them down and they will regret it. Isaac looked at her with surprise and pride, and she felt a fierce joy rise up in her chest. She was done being afraid. She was done letting Cornelius Reed steal one more moment of peace from her. Fairmont left, grumbling and cursing, trudging off into the snowy night. Isaac closed the door behind him and turned to Ophelia. "Are you all right?" he asked. She thought about the question, taking inventory of her feelings. She was shaking, but not from fear. She felt lighter somehow, as if a weight she had been carrying for over a year had finally been lifted. "I think I am better than all right," she said. "I think I am free." He crossed the room in 2 long strides and pulled her into his arms, holding her as if she were the most precious thing in the world. "You were magnificent," he murmured into her hair. "So strong, so brave." "I learned from you," she said. "You taught me that I did not have to let my past define me, that I could be more than the scared girl running from shadows." They stood like that for a long time, wrapped in each other's arms while the fire crackled and the last of the storm howled itself out against the sturdy walls of their home. The rest of the winter passed peacefully. Ophelia's body continued to change and grow, and Isaac continued to fuss and worry in the way of expectant fathers everywhere. In early March, the first signs of spring appeared, green shoots pushing through snow, birds returning from their winter migrations, the world slowly waking up. Ophelia's time came on a warm day in early May, when the world was green and gold and alive with promise. The labor was long and hard, attended by a midwife from town and with Isaac holding her hand through every contraction, every push, every moment of pain and effort. When their son finally arrived, red-faced and squalling, Ophelia wept with joy and exhaustion. "He is perfect," Isaac said, his voice thick with emotion as he held the tiny bundle. "Absolutely perfect." They named him Jonas, after Isaac's brother, and agreed that his middle name would be Ellis, honoring Ophelia's family and the name she had carried before becoming a Xander. Jonas Ellis Xander, born to parents who had both known darkness and chosen to walk toward the light. The years that followed were full and rich. Jonas grew from a squalling infant into a curious toddler, then a rambunctious boy who loved horses and helped his father with the ranch work as soon as he was old enough to hold a rope. 3 years after Jonas came a daughter they named Iris, with her mother's dark hair and her father's gray eyes. 2 years after that came another son, Owen, who was quiet where Jonas was loud, thoughtful where Jonas was impulsive. The ranch prospered. Isaac built additions to the house as the family grew, adding bedrooms and a proper dining room and a porch that wrapped around 3 sides. Ophelia's garden expanded year by year until it provided most of their vegetables through the growing season. They bought more land, increased their herd, hired permanent ranch hands to help with the work. Hangtown grew too, evolving from a rough mining town into a proper community with a school and a church, and even a small library. Ophelia made friends among the other ranch wives, women who admired her strength and capability, who respected the life she and Isaac had built. Isaac earned a reputation as a fair employer and an honest businessman, and the shadow of his past vigilante justice faded as people saw the kind of man he was day to day. Sometimes, on quiet evenings when the children were asleep, Ophelia would pull out the old letters Isaac had written to her before they met, the careful words of a lonely man seeking connection. She would read them and marvel at the journey that had brought them together, at the courage it had taken for both of them to risk their hearts on a stranger. "You ever regret it?" Isaac asked her once, watching her read by lamplight. "Taking that train to California, marrying a man you had never met?" "Never," she said firmly. "My only regret is that I did not do it sooner, that I wasted time being afraid when I could have been here with you building this life." "Your past brought you to me," he reminded her, the phrase that had become something of a touchstone for them. "Every difficult moment, every hard choice, it all led you here. I would not change any of it. Even the part where you thought you were getting a respectable widow and instead got a woman on the run. Especially that part." He grinned, the expression transforming his weathered face. "You have made my life infinitely more interesting, Ophelia Xander." Years later, when Jonas was 15 and already working the ranch alongside his father, when Iris was 12 and helping her mother preserve food for the winter, when Owen was 10 and could outride most grown men, a letter arrived from Philadelphia. Ophelia opened it with trembling hands, still feeling an echo of that old fear despite all the years that had passed. It was from Martha, her friend from the old days. Martha wrote that Cornelius Reed had died in prison 2 years earlier, succumbing to an infection. She thought Ophelia would want to know, thought it might bring her peace to know that particular chapter was truly, finally closed. Ophelia took the letter to Isaac, who was mending a saddle in the barn. She handed it to him without speaking, and he read it carefully, then looked up at her with concern. "How do you feel?" he asked. She thought about it, taking time to examine her reaction. "I feel sorry for him," she said finally. Sorry that he was the kind of man who hurt people, who could not see women as anything more than objects for his use. Sorry that he died alone and disgraced, without ever understanding the harm he caused or seeking to make amends. But I do not feel afraid anymore. That part of me, the part that still jumped at shadows, I think it can finally rest." Isaac set aside the saddle and stood, pulling her into his arms. "You are the strongest woman I have ever known. You have survived things that would have broken most people, and you have built a beautiful life anyway. I am so proud of you, Ophelia. So grateful that your past brought you to me." She leaned into him, breathing in the familiar scent of leather and hay and sun-warmed skin. "I am grateful too. For all of it. for every moment that led me here, to you, to our children, to this life we have made. Mama, Papa, Iris's voice rang out across the yard. Come quick, the mare is foaling. They hurried to the barn where their children were already gathered around the laboring horse. Jonas was talking in a low, soothing voice, just as his father had taught him. Owen was holding a lantern high to provide light. Iris was ready with clean straw and water, prepared to help however she could. Ophelia and Isaac exchanged a look, a whole conversation passing between them in that glance. This was their legacy, these strong, capable children who knew how to work hard and love fiercely and face challenges without flinching. This was what they had built together, out of pain and fear and desperate hope. The mare delivered a healthy colt as the sun rose, painting the sky pink and gold. The children cheered, and Isaac laughed, and Ophelia felt her heart swell so full it almost hurt. This moment right here was what all those frozen tears on the train platform had bought her. This joy, this family, this home. Jonas looked up from where he knelt beside the mare, his face glowing with excitement. Pa, can I help train this one? He is going to be a beauty. We will train him together, Isaac promised, all of us. That is how the Xanders do things. Iris slipped her hand into Ophelia's. Mama, you are crying. Are you sad? No, sweetheart, I am happy. Sometimes people cry when they are very, very happy. That does not make sense, Owen observed with the blunt logic of a 10-year-old. It will when you are older, Ophelia told him, pulling him close for a hug he tolerated for exactly 3 seconds before wriggling away. They walked back to the house together as the sun climbed higher, a family bound by blood and choice and love. Ophelia paused on the porch to look back at the land stretching out in all directions. The cattle grazing in distant pastures, the horses in their corrals, the barn and outbuildings and fences that represented years of hard work and careful planning. Isaac came to stand beside her, his arms settling around her waist with the easy familiarity of decades. What are you thinking about? He asked. I am thinking about a scared young woman standing on a train platform in the freezing cold, crying frozen tears and wondering if she had made a terrible mistake. I am thinking about how that woman could never have imagined this life, this happiness. I am thinking about how grateful I am that I found the courage to step off that train, to confess my secrets, to believe you when you said your past brought you to me. She turned in the circle of his arms to face him. I am thinking that I would live through all of it again, every hard moment, every fear, every tear, if I knew it would lead me back to you. Isaac kissed her, slow and sweet and full of the deep contentment of a love that had weathered storms and emerged stronger. Your past brought you to me, he said when he finally drew back, and I am the luckiest man alive because of it. From inside the house came the sounds of their children arguing good-naturedly about whose turn it was to make breakfast, who had left muddy boots on the clean floor, all the normal chaos of family life. Ophelia smiled and took Isaac's hand. Come on, she said. Our family needs us. They went inside together, into the warm kitchen full of laughter and light and love, into the life they had built from broken pieces and desperate choices, and the simple courage it took to believe in second chances. The door closed behind them, shutting out the past and all its shadows, leaving only the bright promise of today and all the tomorrows still to come. The frozen tears that had once marked Ophelia's arrival in Hangtown were long since dried, replaced by the warm, steady flow of happiness that comes from a life well lived and deeply loved. She was no longer the frightened girl fleeing her mistakes, nor was Isaac still the angry man seeking vengeance for his brother's death. Together, they had become something new, something better than either could have been alone. They had become a family. They had become home. And on warm summer evenings, when the work was done and the children were finally settled in their beds, Isaac and Ophelia would sit on the porch and watch the stars come out over the mountains. Sometimes they talked about the past, the paths that had led them to each other. Sometimes they talked about the future, the dreams they still had for the ranch and their children. And sometimes they simply sat in comfortable silence, hands clasped, hearts full, grateful beyond words for the love that had saved them both. "Your past brought you to me," Isaac had said on that first frozen night. Neither of them had known then how true those words would prove to be, how the pain and fear and desperate choices that had driven them together would ultimately forge something beautiful and lasting. But they knew it now, felt it in every shared glance and gentle touch, in every sunrise they greeted together and every challenge they faced side by side. The Wild West could be harsh and unforgiving, a place where the strong survived and the weak perished. But it could also be a place of new beginnings, of second chances, of love found in the most unexpected places. For Ophelia and Isaac Xander, it had been all of those things and more. Their love story would be told in Hangtown for generations. The tale of the mail-order bride who arrived with secrets, and the cowboy who taught her that the past does not have to define the future. Children would grow up hearing how Ophelia had confessed through frozen tears on a winter night, and how Isaac had responded with words that would echo through the decades. "Your past brought you to me." And every couple facing their own struggles, their own fears about what they had done and who they had been, would take courage from that story. They would remember that love, real and true and lasting, is not about perfection. It is about finding someone who looks at your broken pieces and sees the possibility of something whole. It is about choosing each other, day after day, year after year, through good times and hard ones. This was the legacy of Isaac and Ophelia Xander, written not in grand gestures or dramatic rescues, but in quiet acts of kindness and steadfast devotion. It was written in the ranch they built together, in the children they raised with love and wisdom, in the life they created out of ashes and hope. As the stars wheeled overhead and the night breeze carried the scent of sage and wildflowers, Isaac pulled Ophelia closer, and she rested her head on his shoulder. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new work to be done. But for now, in this moment, they had everything they needed. They had each other. They had their family. They had their home, and they had the certain knowledge that no matter what the future held, they would face it together, strengthened by the journey that had brought them to this place, to this moment, to each other. The mail-order bride had long since become simply Ophelia Xander, wife and mother, rancher and partner. But she never forgot the girl she had been, the tears she had cried, the fear she had overcome. Those memories kept her humble and grateful, reminded her never to take for granted the precious gift of the life she now lived. And Isaac, watching his wife's face in the starlight, felt his heart swell with the same wonder he had felt on that cold February day when he first saw her on the train platform. She had seemed so small and frightened then, so vulnerable. He could never have guessed at the strength she possessed, the courage that had carried her through darkness into light. "Your past brought you to me," he had told her. And every day since, he had thanked whatever force in the universe had been kind enough to guide her path to his door. She was his greatest blessing, his truest companion, the love he had given up hope of finding. Together, they had built more than a ranch or a family. They had built a testament to the transforming power of love, to the possibility of redemption and new beginnings. They had proved that the worst moments of our lives need not define us, that we can rise above our circumstances and create something beautiful from the wreckage. This was their truth, their story, their legacy. And it would endure long after they were gone, a beacon of hope for anyone who had ever been afraid, anyone who had ever run from their past, anyone who had ever dared to believe in love when all seemed lost. The night deepened, stars brightening in the vast western sky. Isaac and Ophelia sat together in the peaceful darkness, content and complete. Two souls who had found each other against all odds and built a love that would last forever. And if you listened closely on those warm summer nights, you might hear the echo of Ophelia's frozen tears meeting Isaac's steadfast promise, a harmony of healing and hope that sang through the years. Your past brought you to me, and I would not change a single moment, for every tear, every fear, every step of that difficult journey led us here, to this love, to this life, to each other. This was their happily ever after, earned through pain and courage, and the simple, profound choice to believe in each other. And it was more beautiful than either of them could ever have imagined on that frozen February day when their story began.